In a galaxy rife with conflict, where dominant species vied for supremacy, humans were poised to defy all expectations. Their strength wasn't derived from sheer size or raw power, but from the crucible of surviving a death world. The very ground shuddered under the relentless barrage of distant artillery fire. Each explosion reverberated across the ravaged battlefield like a morbid drumbeat. Soldiers from every allied race, the towering Key, the insectoid Carvin, the stoic Toyne, and the blue-skinned Aranian warriors, clung to their positions with fading hope. Covered in the dirt and gore of a battle that had raged for days, they were enveloped in a palpable sense of despair, as thick as the smoke that choked the sky and cast a pall over the devastated landscape. General Axa, a seasoned Aranian warrior, stood at the lip of a shallow trench, his keen eyes narrowed against the haze of smoke and debris. His normally vibrant blue skin was now a dull grey, a testament to the exhaustion of leading his forces against the relentless Drax advance. The Drax, an unforgiving species, were as harsh and unyielding as the worlds they conquered. In every direction, Axis troops fought with a tenuous hold on survival, scattered in small groups and isolated outposts, a stark contrast to the once formidable front they had established at the war's commencement. The Drax forces were unlike any enemy the Alliance had encountered. Their movements were unnervingly precise, their formations impeccable, and their tactics ruthless. No creature, machine, or strategy seemed capable of penetrating their defenses. The Drax soldiers themselves were clad in sleek, jet-black armor that shimmered ominously, every line and angle designed to intimidate as much as protect. Whenever a Drax formation appeared on the horizon, a chill descended upon the battlefield, and the Allied soldiers' resolve wavered. Axa glanced towards a Carvin scout, her mandibles twitching nervously as her multifaceted eyes scanned the horizon. Further down the line, a towering Rari warrior, a 7-foot behemoth of muscle and plated armor, gripped a plasma cannon, his posture rigid with tension. Beside him stood Renk, Axa's second-in-command, a Toyne with sharp features and an almost unsettling alertness. Renk's pale grey skin was darkened with dirt and grime, his uniform torn from close calls with Drax foot soldiers. "General Renk," he said, his voice low and urgent, barely audible above the distant roar of cannon fire. "We can't hold this position much longer. Ammunition is critically low, and half our men are too wounded to fight." He looked up, his narrow eyes meeting Axis with a flicker of fear. "If we don't retreat now, we'll lose everyone. We're completely spent." Axa exhaled heavily, his gaze hardening as he stared into the swirling fog that concealed the enemy lines. "Retreat to where, Renk? There's nowhere left to go. If we give up this position, we might as well surrender the entire sector." Renk offered no argument. He knew the general was right. They had already lost 4 sectors to the Drax in the past week, each defeat pushing them further back, each retreat a grim reminder of the enemy's relentless advance. This was their last stand. If they fell here, the Drax would sweep through the remaining systems unopposed. As the minutes ticked by, the Allied soldiers' morale continued to plummet. The lines that had once been filled with grim-faced determination were now sparse and hollow, filled with weary faces resigned to their fate. Most soldiers clutched their weapons with trembling hands, their eyes fixed on the ground, bracing themselves for what they feared would be their final moments. Suddenly, a deep rumble rolled across the battlefield, louder than any previous explosion. The ground shook violently, and Axa's heart skipped a beat as he turned towards the source of the noise. On the horizon, a massive formation of Drax tanks was advancing, their thick armored shells gleaming under the smoke-filled sky. The tanks were flanked by squads of Drax infantry, each soldier moving in perfect unison, a faceless wave of destruction that seemed unstoppable. Amid the devastation, the Drax tanks advanced, their armored hulls gleaming menacingly beneath the smoke-choked sky. Flanking the tanks were legions of Drax infantry, marching with chilling precision, an unstoppable tide of destruction. The Allied soldiers watched, paralyzed by a sense of impending doom. Even Axa, a veteran of countless battles, felt a cold dread grip his heart. "General," Renk said, his voice strained, "we're not equipped for this. Those tanks will tear our defenses apart within minutes." Axa remained silent, his mind desperately seeking a solution, a strategy, anything to offer even a sliver of hope. The grim reality was undeniable. They were outmatched, outgunned, and hopelessly outnumbered. Every conceivable plan led to the same devastating conclusion: annihilation. Just as despair threatened to engulf them, a sharp crackle broke through the oppressive silence of AXA's comm unit. General AXA, a faint voice, distorted by static, urgently reported unidentified vessels approaching from coordinates 1290. The transmission cut off, swallowed by the roar of nearby explosions. AXA and Renk exchanged a look of disbelief. Reinforcements. A spark of hope flickered in Renk's eyes. AXA stared at the horizon, his mind reeling. Who could it be? The alliance was stretched thin, every available soldier deployed. Previous pleas for support had gone unanswered. Yet, a palpable buzz of excitement rippled through the Allied lines. Soldiers murmured, their gazes lifting to the sky with a newfound hope. Through the haze of smoke and ash, a squadron of sleek, silver-grey ships descended, cutting through the sky with unmistakably human speed and precision. The Allied soldiers gasped, their eyes wide with awe as the ships approached, gleaming like beacons of salvation. The Dracs' advance faltered, their relentless march slowing as they, too, witnessed the newcomers. A ripple of hesitation spread through the Dracs' ranks, the first sign of uncertainty they had displayed. The humans had arrived, and their mere presence was enough to sow doubt among the enemy. As the ships touched down, human cadets disembarked with practiced efficiency, their movements sharp and purposeful. Clad in dark armor bearing the insignia of the Deathworld Cadets, a division whispered to be comprised of soldiers from planets so hostile that no other species dared to tread, they exuded an aura of lethal confidence. Their eyes scanned the battlefield with a calm intensity that belied the surrounding chaos. For a moment, AXA watched in stunned silence. He had heard rumors of the Deathworld Cadets, whispers of their near-mythical exploits. He never imagined he would witness them in action. They were an elite force, the galaxy's last resort, summoned only in the most dire circumstances. And here they were, ready to face an enemy that had brought entire civilizations to their knees. The human squad leader, a tall, broad-shouldered figure with a scar that bisected his face, approached AXA. His expression was unreadable beneath his helmet, his voice calm, almost casual. "General AXA, I'm Captain Kale Ryder, Deathworld Cadet. We received a distress call." He paused, glancing at the battered Allied soldiers. "Looks like we got here just in time." AXA nodded, his voice thick with gratitude and relief. We thought we were finished," he admitted, his words barely a whisper. Captain Ryder's gaze hardened, his eyes flashing with fierce resolve. "Not today, General. Not if we have anything to say about it." He turned to his troops, his voice ringing across the battlefield, rekindling the spirits of every soldier within earshot. "Deathworld Cadets, you know the drill. Let's show these Dracs what happens when they push too far." The Dracs' forces, a terrifying, unified wave of destruction, seemed unstoppable. Their sleek, black armor, designed to instill fear as much as to protect, shimmered ominously under the smoke-filled sky. Every precise movement, every flawless formation, every ruthless tactic they employed spoke of an enemy unlike any the Alliance had faced before. A palpable chill descended on the battlefield each time a Drax formation appeared, weakening the Allied soldiers' resolve a little more with each appearance. AXA, watching the unfolding events, observed a Carven scout nearby, her multiple eyes nervously scanning the horizon, mandibles twitching. Further down the line, a towering Rari warrior, a behemoth of muscle and armor, stood rigid, gripping his plasma cannon. Beside him, Renk, AXA's second-in-command, a toying with sharp, almost predatory features and a perpetually alert demeanor, stood covered in dirt and grime, his uniform torn from close calls with the enemy. "General Renk," AXA said, his voice low and urgent, barely audible above the din of war. "We're on our last legs. Ammunition is dangerously low, and half our men are too wounded to continue fighting." Renk looked up, a flicker of fear in his eyes. "We need to withdraw, General. Now. If we don't, we'll lose everyone." AXA released a heavy sigh, his gaze hardening as he surveyed the swirling fog concealing the enemy lines. "Retreat to where, Renk? There's nowhere left to go. We abandon this position, we surrender the entire sector." Renk didn't argue. He knew AXA was right. They had already ceded 4 sectors to the Dracs in the past week, each loss pushing them further back, a stark reminder of the enemy's relentless advance. This was their final stand. Should they fall here, the Dracs would sweep across the remaining systems unchecked. As the agonizing minutes ticked by, the Allied soldiers' morale continued to crumble. The lines, once filled with grim determination, were now thin and scattered, filled with weary faces resigned to their fate. Many clutched their weapons with trembling hands, eyes downcast, anticipating their final moments. A sudden, deep rumble, louder than any previous explosion, shook the battlefield. The ground trembled violently, and AXA's heart skipped a beat as he turned towards the source. A massive formation of Drax tanks was advancing, their armored hulls gleaming menacingly under the smoke-filled sky. Flanking the tanks were squads of Drax infantry, each soldier moving with chilling precision, a faceless wave of destruction that appeared unstoppable. The Allied soldiers watched, frozen by the sight of the advancing Drax forces. Each measured step, each precise, mechanical movement, filled their hearts with dread. Even AXA, a veteran of countless battles, felt a knot of fear tighten in his chest. "General," Renk's voice was quiet, strained, "we're ill-equipped for this. Those tanks will tear through our defenses in minutes." AXA remained silent, his mind frantically searching for a solution, a strategy, any sliver of hope. The bleak reality was undeniable. They were outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered. Every possible plan led to the same devastating outcome: annihilation. Just as despair threatened to consume them, a sharp crackle broke through the oppressive silence of AXA's comm unit. "General AXA," a faint voice, distorted by static, reported urgently, unidentified vessels approaching from coordinates 1290. The transmission was cut short by nearby explosions. AXA and Renk exchanged a look of disbelief. "Reinforcements?" A flicker of hope ignited in Renk's eyes. AXA stared intently at the horizon, his mind reeling. Who could it be? The Alliance's resources were depleted, every available soldier already deployed. Previous calls for aid had gone unanswered. Yet, a palpable buzz of excitement rippled through the Allied lines. Soldiers murmured, lifting their gazes skyward with newfound hope. Through the haze of smoke and ash, a squadron of sleek, silver-grey ships descended, cutting through the sky with distinctly human speed and precision. The Allied soldiers gasped, their eyes wide with awe as the ships approached, gleaming like beacons in the darkness. The Drax advance faltered, their relentless march slowing as they, too, witnessed the arrival of the newcomers. A wave of hesitation spread through their ranks, the first sign of uncertainty they had displayed. The humans had arrived, and their mere presence was enough to sow doubt among the enemy. As the ships touched down, human cadets disembarked with practiced efficiency, their movements sharp and purposeful. Clad in dark armor bearing the insignia of the Deathworld Cadets, a division rumored to be comprised of soldiers from planets so hostile that no other species dared to tread, they exuded an aura of lethal confidence. Their eyes scanned the battlefield with a calm intensity that belied the surrounding chaos. AXA watched, stunned, as the human cadets disembarked, their movements sharp and efficient. They wore dark armor emblazoned with the insignia of the Deathworld Cadets, a legendary division whispered to be composed of soldiers hailing from planets so hostile, no other species dared to set foot on them. These cadets radiated an aura of deadly competence, their eyes calmly assessing the battlefield, seemingly unaffected by the chaos surrounding them. AXA had only heard rumors of the Deathworld Cadets, whispers of their almost mythical accomplishments. He never dared to hope he would witness them in action. They were an elite force, the galaxy's final recourse, deployed only when all other hope was lost. And here they were, facing an enemy that had brought entire civilizations to their knees. The human squad leader, a tall, imposing figure with a scar bisecting his face, approached AXA. His expression was unreadable beneath his helmet, his voice calm, almost conversational. "General AXA, I'm Captain Kale Ryder, Deathworld Cadet. We intercepted a distress signal." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the battered Allied soldiers. "Seems we arrived just in the nick of time." AXA nodded, his voice thick with gratitude and a profound sense of relief. We believed we were finished," he admitted, the words barely a whisper. Captain Ryder's expression hardened, his eyes blazing with fierce determination. "Not today, General. Not while we still draw breath." He turned to his troops, his voice ringing across the battlefield, rekindling a spark of hope in every soldier within earshot. "Deathworld Cadets, you know the procedure. Let's demonstrate to these Dracs the consequences of overreaching." As the human soldiers dispersed across the front lines, integrating with their alien counterparts, the entire atmosphere shifted. For the first time since the battle began, the Allies felt a resurgence of hope. As they braced for the Dracs' next move, a new resolve solidified within them, stronger than any armor, sharper than any blade. The tide was turning. With the arrival of the Deathworld Cadets, an unusual quiet descended over the battlefield. Soldiers of every species, a mosaic of armor, scales, fur, and exoskeletons, watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension as the humans took their positions. The Dracs, renowned for their discipline and relentless advance, had paused just outside firing range. It was as if both sides instinctively recognized the need to reassess their opponents. Captain Kale Ryder moved swiftly along the line, issuing orders to his squad. They responded instantly, establishing a tight perimeter with an efficiency that astonished their alien allies. The Deathworld Cadets were trained for the most extreme conditions imaginable, honed in environments so lethal that mere survival was a badge of honor. This battlefield, by comparison, was almost mundane. General Axer observed Captain Ryder intently, noting the man's calm intensity. Ryder and his cadets projected an aura that transcended skill and discipline. It was as though they had accepted the inevitability of violence, found peace within the chaos that surrounded them. Axer, a veteran hardened by years of combat against the galaxy's worst horrors, found himself strangely comforted by their presence. Beside him, Renk, the Toyn officer, shifted uneasily. "Sir, I'm not sure what to make of them," he muttered. They seem unfazed. Almost as if they relish it." Axer glanced at his lieutenant, a wry smile touching his lips. "They don't fear battle, Renk. They've lived it countless times. This is their element." Before Renk could respond, a deafening rumble shook the ground, sending clouds of dirt and debris skyward. The Dracs had resumed their advance. Their massive, eight-legged tanks lumbered forward with mechanical precision, each one bristling with weapons capable of obliterating entire platoons with a single blast. Behind them, lines of Drax infantry surged forward, dark figures marching in perfect synchronization. "Positions!" Captain Ryder's voice rang out, clear and commanding. The Deathworld Cadets sprang into action, each one moving with a level of confidence and coordination that bordered on reckless. In contrast to the Drax's rigid formations, the cadets seemed to thrive on fluidity, adapting their positions to the changing terrain with an almost instinctive understanding. They weren't simply following orders, they were anticipating, reacting as if they could predict the enemy's every move. As the human soldiers integrated themselves into the Allied lines, a palpable shift occurred on the battlefield. A resurgence of hope, a feeling they had almost forgotten, coursed through the ranks. They braced themselves for the Drax's next assault, a newfound resolve solidifying within them, stronger than any armor plating. The tide, it seemed, was beginning to turn. An unusual quiet descended as the Deathworld Cadets took their positions. Soldiers of all species, Ki, Carvin, Toyn, Aranian, and others, watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Even the Drax, renowned for their relentless advance, paused, holding their position just outside of firing range. It was as if both sides instinctively recognized a need to reassess the situation. Captain Kale Ryder moved efficiently, issuing concise orders to his squad. They responded instantly, establishing a defensive perimeter with an almost unnerving efficiency. Trained in the most extreme environments imaginable, where survival itself was a testament to their abilities, this battlefield was almost tame by comparison. General Axer observed Ryder, noting the captain's calm intensity. Ryder and his cadets exuded an aura that transcended mere skill and training. They seemed to have embraced the reality of combat, found a strange peace within the chaos. Axer, a hardened veteran of countless conflicts, found himself unexpectedly comforted by their presence. Beside him, Renk shifted nervously. "Sir," he murmured, "I'm unsure about these humans. They seem unperturbed. Almost as if they welcome this." Axer glanced at his lieutenant, a slight smile touching his lips. "They do not fear battle, Renk. They have lived it. This is their domain." Before Renk could reply, the ground trembled violently, sending plumes of dust and debris into the air. The Dracs had begun their advance once more. Their massive, 8-legged tanks lumbered forward, each one bristling with devastating weaponry. Behind them, lines of Dracs infantry marched in perfect synchronization. "Positions!" Ryder's voice rang out, sharp and clear. The Deathworld Cadets sprang to action, their movements a blend of confidence and coordination that bordered on reckless abandon. Unlike the Dracs' rigid formations, the cadets embraced fluidity, adapting to the shifting terrain with an almost instinctive awareness. They weren't merely following orders, they were anticipating, reacting as if they could predict the enemy's every move. Ryder's squad dispersed, integrating themselves with the other Allied forces. The alien soldiers watched, tense and uncertain, as the humans prepared for the onslaught. Some had fought alongside humans before, knew of their tenacity and strength, but these cadets were different. There was a raw, unyielding intensity in their eyes, a fierce determination that went beyond simple duty. "Steady," Ryder called out, raising his weapon as the Drax tanks moved into range. A flicker of a smile played at the corner of his lips. "Let them come." The first blast from the Drax tanks was a high-pitched whine followed by a searing explosion. The ground shook, throwing some soldiers off their feet. Smoke and dust filled the air, obscuring visibility. But the Deathworld Cadets were already moving. Ryder and his squad navigated the haze with an unnerving ease, using the cover of smoke and debris to their advantage. Their weapons, a combination of advanced rifles, plasma grenades, and close-quarters blades, were wielded with brutal efficiency. They launched their counter-offensive with deadly precision. Axer watched in stunned amazement as the humans tore into the Drax ranks. Each movement was calculated and effective, a stark contrast to the Drax's meticulous formations. The cadets thrived in the chaos, weaving through the enemy lines, covering each other's vulnerabilities without a moment's hesitation. Renk turned to Axer, his expression a mixture of shock and awe. They're disrupting them, sir. The Dracs don't know how to react." It was true. The Dracs, accustomed to overwhelming their opponents with superior numbers and tactics, seemed bewildered by the cadets' unconventional approach. The humans fought with a blend of precision and ferocity that the Dracs had never encountered before. For the first time, the Dracs lines faltered, their perfectly coordinated formations breaking apart as they struggled to adapt. "Fall back!" Ryder's voice cut through the comms. His command was directed at the Allied troops behind them, who looked on in confusion as the Deathworld Cadets retreated, drawing the Drax forces deeper into the battlefield. It was a daring maneuver, one that required impeccable timing, but Ryder executed it flawlessly. The cadets lured the Drax forward, then broke into smaller teams, flanking the advancing enemy. The Allied soldiers quickly understood, rallying behind the humans as they adapted to the new tactic. Axer felt a surge of adrenaline, a sense of renewed purpose, as he and his troops joined the counterattack. The Dracs, caught off guard, scrambled to reform their lines, but it was too late. Ryder's squad, seamlessly integrated with the Allied forces, launched their counter-offensive with deadly precision. Axer watched in stunned amazement as the humans tore into the Dracs' ranks. Their movements were efficient and calculated, a stark contrast to the Drax's overly meticulous formations. The cadets thrived in the chaos, weaving through the enemy lines, anticipating and covering each other's vulnerabilities without a moment's hesitation. Renk, turning to Axer, wore an expression of shocked awe. They're disrupting them, sir. The Dracs are completely disoriented." He was right. The Dracs, accustomed to overwhelming their adversaries with superior numbers and pre-planned tactics, were baffled by the cadets' unconventional, adaptive approach. The humans fought with a ferocious precision unlike anything the Dracs had encountered. For the first time, the Dracs' lines wavered, their rigidly coordinated formation splintering as they struggled to adapt to the fluid battlefield. "Fall back!" Ryder's voice cut through the comms, a command directed not at his squad, but at the Allied troops behind them. They looked on in confusion as the Deathworld Cadets retreated, pulling the Drax forces deeper into the battlefield. It was a bold maneuver, demanding impeccable timing and coordination, but Ryder executed it flawlessly. The cadets drew the Drax forward, then split into smaller teams, flanking the advancing enemy. The Allied soldiers quickly grasped the strategy, rallying behind the humans and adapting to the changing tactics. Axer felt a surge of adrenaline, a renewed sense of purpose, as he and his troops joined the counterattack. The Drax, caught completely off guard, scrambled to re-establish their lines, but it was already too late. Ryder's voice crackled through the comms again, this time with a grim determination: target the tanks. We can't hold them off indefinitely. If those things keep firing, the cadets didn't hesitate. Working in pairs, they advanced on the Drax tanks, weaving through enemy fire with an agility that defied belief. Plasma rounds and explosive charges rained down on the tanks, each blast tearing through the heavy armor. Fallon, a tall, wiry cadet with a deceptively calm demeanor, hurled a plasma grenade at a tank's main weapon mount, ducking for cover just as the explosion ripped through its turret. The vehicle shuddered, smoke billowing from its core as it ground to a halt. Across the battlefield, Izar fought with a chilling efficiency, leaving a trail of destroyed Drax in his wake. His movements were fluid, almost graceful, as he dispatched enemy soldiers with quick, lethal blows. Each strike, each shot, was executed with deadly precision. The battle was far from over. The Drax, though momentarily thrown off balance, regrouped with chilling speed. Their commanders barked orders, bringing their forces back into formation. Though fewer in number, the Drax tanks continued their relentless barrage, each blast carving deep craters into the ground. "We're running out of time, General," Ryder's voice was urgent. "Do we have any heavy support left on the eastern flank?" Axer checked his comms, his brow furrowing. The eastern flank had been heavily bombarded earlier, leaving only a handful of Toyn artillery units operational. It was a long shot, but their only option. "Sending coordinates to the artillery team now," Axer replied, his voice tight. "We'll need a miracle to pull this off." "Then let's make one," Ryder responded, his tone unwavering. As the artillery rounds began to fall, targeted precisely where the Drax had reformed, Axer could feel the tide turning. The Drax, though still powerful and relentless, were now reacting, no longer dictating the flow of combat. The Deathworld Cadets had introduced chaos, a relentless unpredictability that the Drax simply couldn't counter. "Sir, they're pushing them back!" Renk exclaimed, his eyes wide with disbelief. "The cadets, they're actually doing it." But Axer remained tense, his gaze fixed on the battlefield. He knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The Drax were far from defeated, and he had no doubt they would respond with even greater ferocity. Yet, for the first time since the battle began, Axer felt a flicker of hope, a spark that, though faint, burned with a fierce determination. The Deathworld Cadets had arrived, and the balance of power had shifted. As the battle raged, transforming the battlefield into a desolate wasteland of scorched earth and twisted metal, the Drax tanks, relentless and monstrous, pressed their attack. Their precision, however, had been disrupted. The Deathworld Cadets, fighting alongside the Allied forces, had torn through enemy ranks, creating pockets of resistance and destabilizing the Drax lines. Yet, the enemy was regrouping, seemingly endless. For every tank destroyed, another emerged, and for every Drax soldier felled, 3 more appeared. The sheer weight of their numbers was beginning to take its toll, even on the cadets. Captain Kale Ryder gritted his teeth, watching a fresh wave of Drax soldiers crest the ridge. He'd seen countless battles, but none like this. The Drax weren't simply fighting, they were adapting, their commanders studying the Deathworld Cadets' tactics and adjusting their strategies accordingly. The humans' initial advantage was fading as the Drax learned and countered. "Fallon, Izar, on me!" Ryder's voice crackled across the comms. Within seconds, 2 cadets were at his side, battered but unbowed. Fallon's helmet bore a deep gash, her face streaked with ash and sweat. Izar's left arm plate was cracked, revealing a scarred forearm, but his grip on his rifle remained firm. "What's the plan, Cap?" Fallon asked, her voice calm despite the intensity in her eyes. Ryder nodded towards the approaching line of tanks, their cannons glowing ominously. "We're out of options. Those tanks have to go down before they reach the main line, or we're finished." Fallon's expression hardened, and Izar let out a low whistle. "That's a lot of firepower, Captain," Izar muttered, "and not much cover." Ryder shrugged, a grim half-smile playing on his lips. "Deathworld Cadets. A little firepower never stopped us before." With that, the three cadets broke into a run, weaving through the debris towards the tanks. Behind them, inspired by the cadets' audacity, the Allied forces rallied and surged forward, lending their firepower to the assault. Plasma rounds and explosive shells streaked through the air, detonating in bursts of fire and shrapnel. General Axer watched from his vantage point, heart pounding as the cadets charged headlong into the heart of the Drax forces. The Allied soldiers around him exchanged uneasy glances, some murmuring prayers or words of encouragement. The battlefield had become a brutal test of endurance, and everyone knew their survival hinged on the success of this desperate maneuver. Just as the cadets neared the tanks, the Drax commanders launched a new offensive. From behind their advancing lines, sleek, dark figures emerged, Drax shock troopers, elite warriors clad in enhanced armor, wielding weapons that pulsed with menacing energy. They advanced with chilling precision, their formation flawless. Renk's voice crackled over Axer's comm, "General, those are Drax elites. We've only seen them deployed in the final stages of occupation. This is their final push." Axer's stomach plummeted. The elites were legendary, spoken of in hushed, fearful tones. They were the Drax's finest, trained not for battle but for absolute domination. If they reached the cadets, the humans would be hopelessly outmatched. "Captain Ryder." Axer barked into the comms. "Drax elites inbound. Fall back to cover if you can. Do not engage them directly." There was a pause before Ryder's steady voice replied, "Understood, General. But if we fall back, those tanks will break through. We don't have a choice." Axer clenched his fists, the weight of the decision heavy on him. He knew Ryder was right, retreat meant certain destruction. But sending the cadets to face the Drax elites felt like a death sentence. As if sensing his hesitation, Ryder's voice came through the comms again, softer this time, "General, it's why we're here. Let us do our job." Axer swallowed hard, "May the stars be with you, Captain." The comm line went silent, and the cadets continued their charge. The ensuing minutes were a whirlwind of violence. The cadets met the Drax elites head-on, a brutal dance of destruction. Fallon dodged a plasma blade, retaliating with a swift knife strike that pierced the enemy's armor. Izar, grim-faced, fired a shot directly into an elite's chest, the impact sending the Drax warrior sprawling. Ryder moved through the melee like a force of nature, his rifle spitting fire with unnerving accuracy. He dodged a tank blast, the heat searing his armor but leaving him unharmed. Every movement, every strike, was a testament to his training, to the years of discipline and instinct that had forged him into a Deathworld cadet. But the elites were relentless. For every one that fell, two more took its place, each stronger, faster, deadlier. The cadets were holding their own, but the strain was showing. Fallon's movement slowed, her breathing ragged. Izar's rifle clicked empty, and he cursed, switching to his sidearm as he fended off two attackers at once. Axer watched in helpless horror as the cadets fought with every ounce of their strength, knowing they couldn't hold out forever. The Allied forces behind them struggled to advance, pinned down by the relentless barrage of the Drax tanks. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the sky, casting an eerie glow over the battlefield. Axer shielded his eyes, squinting as he looked up. Descending from the clouds was a colossal vessel, larger than any he had ever seen, bristling with weapons and bearing the unmistakable insignia of the Deathworld Cadets. It was the Harbinger *, the Cadets' flagship, a vessel rumored to be capable of leveling entire planets. Its appearance stopped both Allied and Drax forces in their tracks, all staring in awe and terror. From the Harbinger's belly, pods began to drop, crashing onto the battlefield with explosive force. The pods opened, and more Deathworld cadets emerged, fully armed and ready for battle. They moved with the same lethal precision as their comrades, joining the fray with a renewed intensity that reinvigorated the Allied soldiers and struck fear into the hearts of the Dracs. Ryder's voice boomed over the comms, a note of triumph in his tone. "Reinforcements have arrived. All units, push forward." With renewed purpose, the Allied forces surged forward, their battle cries echoing across the field as they joined the cadets in their charge. Caught completely off guard, the Dracs faltered, their formations breaking as they struggled to regroup. The cadets, revitalized by the arrival of their comrades, fought with newfound energy, each strike more powerful than the last. Ryder led the charge, his rifle blazing as he pushed forward, his voice a steady anchor for his squad. The Dracs, however, were not yet defeated. The elites regrouped, forming a defensive line around their remaining tanks, their faces grim as they prepared for a final stand. They knew they were outmatched, but their pride and training would not allow them to surrender. This was their last stand, and they intended to fight to the death.